I mean, is the battery good? That's
Yeah, battery is good.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. You just disappear on me. You got to tell me what you're up to. Sorry, Shaykh. You call me a sorry Shaykh? Sorry, comma Shaykh. All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. We praise Allah, the one true God, for He deserves all the praise, and we ask Him to bless His messenger Muhammad, to elevate his mention and rank, and to shower him with protection and grace along with his family and his righteous followers until the last days, as He did with Ibrahim, his family and righteous followers in the past. Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'una wa anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa zidna ilma. We ask you, Allah, to teach us what benefits us, to allow us to benefit from the things that we learn, and to increase us in knowledge. Allahumma ij'al ma ta'allamnahu hujjatan lana la 'alayna. We ask you to make the things that we learn an evidence for us and not an evidence against us. Welcome to the third episode of Prophetic Stories, Illustrations of Life, where we're covering specific events or specific narrations from the lifetime of the messenger, and then trying to extract some lessons that we can apply into our daily lives. And today's topic is somewhat related to last week's. Last week we spoke about some of the beautiful aspects of the Prophet's personality, which according to his wife's estimation, and when she gave him counsel as he received revelation, was a cause for God never to forsake him. So then what we said is that it would be good for us to incorporate these particular character traits into our lives. And the first one was, إِنَّكَ لَتَصِلُ الرَّحِمِ. You keep good family ties. You take care of your family. And we spoke about that not being necessarily only your immediate family or your nucleus family, because a lot of people have become very selfish. Rather, it is your extended family. And then by extension, it becomes the human family, because in the end of the day, we're all related. We're all the children of Adam. Today's subject is somewhat related. It's related to one of the family members of the Prophet ﷺ. And basically the author here takes us and he says, as soon as the Prophet can comprehend, once he was old enough, this individual that we're going to talk about today was the closest man to him. He is the full brother of the Prophet's father, Abdullah. So it's good for us to have a little background about the Prophet's family. We know the Prophet is named Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, the son of Abdul Muttalib. Abdul Muttalib was not his real name. His real name was Shaykh. And that family is the family of Hashim, so that's why they're called Banu Hashim. Shaykh, also known as Abdul Muttalib, Al-Muttalib was his uncle who had adopted him in his infancy. And he was so closely attached to Al-Muttalib that they called him Abdul Muttalib, the slave or the servant of Al-Muttalib, because he constantly kept his company. And that's the name that most people know him as. Most people don't know that his real name is Shaykh. This man had many children, boys and girls. Now, not all of his children were from the same wife. So two of these children that were full brothers were Abdullah and the man that we're talking about today, who actually also took care of the Prophet. As we know, he starts off his life being an orphan. An orphan in Arabic, الْيَتِيمُ مَنْ فَقَدَ أَبَاهُ دُونَ الْبُلُوغِ. Specifically, it's a person who loses their father before they reach the age of accountability. So we know in the story of Muhammad that he's born without a father, as in his father had died before he was even born. And then his mother shortly thereafter passes away, and he's under the care of his grandfather Abdul Muttalib. And then Abdul Muttalib passes away, and he's under the care of the full brother of his father, Abu Talib, that famous personality, Abu Talib. So he basically is just an uncle to Muhammad, rather he's basically his father. You can call him his second father. And this was actually part of the will and that Abdul Muttalib wished he assigned Abu Talib to take care of Muhammad. And he says, this is my son whose father passed away, as you know, and I want you to take special care of him. So now Abu Talib becomes somewhat of an adopted parent, a foster parent to Muhammad. And the Prophet's nickname was Yatimu Abi Talib. One of his nicknames was the orphan child of Abu Talib. They had an extreme level of affection and love between one another. Abu Talib, whenever he would travel, because he was so attached to Muhammad, he would take him along for the journey. He would not feel comfortable leaving him behind. He didn't take his own biological children. So this is something that's amazing. Sometimes, although it's a foster parent relationship, or it's someone that's very close to you, but you have some type of bond with them that you can't even explain. Sometimes it exceeds your own blood relations. Because love and affection is something that's in the heart. And you basically don't really have much control over it. So it's something that Allah places in people's hearts. So whenever Abu Talib would travel to Sham, and this actually will help us segue into something from the Prophet's biography, which is mentioned in the Quran. Now we have a surah in the Quran titled Quraysh. We should ask ourselves, why is Quraysh mentioned in the Quran? What is the significance of these people? So these were the people who claimed to be the children of Abraham. And they claimed to be the ones, the guardians and the custodians of God's house, the Kaaba. And they claimed to be on the religion of Abraham. And they believed they were the best people on earth. So Allah mentions them in the Quran, but He mentions His favor unto them. And part of the favor that Allah had for them, because they used to take care of the Kaaba, people used to call Quraysh Ahlullah. They were known as God's people. So Arabia at the time was a lawless land, and you did not feel safe. But the Quraysh felt safe. Nobody would ever bother them. Nobody would attack them. They did not have to endure raids that the other people in the desert, the Bedouins in the desert, had to struggle with. So Allah reminds them of His favors. And He says, you guys used to travel 2 times. One time, رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ. 2 journeys, the winter journey and the summer journey. Winter journey, they would go south to a place called Yemen. Something interesting with these names, Yemen and Sham. Yemen is anything that comes to the right side of the Kaaba. So anything south of Mecca, historically, is called Yemen. It's not the nation state that we have today called Yemen. And we ask Allah to make it easy on the people of Yemen, as they are enduring a lot of difficulties at these times. We ask Allah to protect them and to help them and to shield them from the harm that they're experiencing. So in the winter time, they would go down south, because down south is tropical weather and it would not be as cold, and they would exchange their goods with the people there. The summertime, they would go to Sham. Sham translates as the Levant. Today, 4 nation states occupy that place, namely Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Palestine, a little bit of Iraq, and a bit of northern Arabia. That was called Ash-Sham. Sham comes from the word in Arabic for left. Sha'am is your left. So anything left of the Kaaba was called Sham. So the north side is Sham, the south side is Yemen. And Allah reminds the people of Mecca, He says, remember those 2 trips that you used to take. Why is He reminding them of those 2 trips? Because they felt safe. They could travel in caravans and sell and buy, and nobody would harm them. Other Arabs did not have the same fortune, because they didn't have the immunity of being God's people. So that's why Quraysh is mentioned in the Quran. Allah is telling them, remember Allah's favors unto you. Abu Talib takes this little child, Muhammad, while he was 9 years of age. So shortly after he adopts him, because he adopts him when he was 8. So from the age 8, now the Prophet ﷺ is, as a child, he has not become a prophet yet. And I'm not going to say, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, every time I mention him from now on. Because right now we're talking about Muhammad, the child, before he becomes a prophet. Okay? So, at 9 years old, he takes him on the caravan that he would travel on, and he travels up north to Sham. Now, when you think 9, you're not thinking this is a time to teach anybody business or commerce, to buy and to sell. It's definitely not a good time to travel in the desert and to go through that type of strenuous journey. This is not 5-star accommodations, VIP lounge on a particular airline. They had to travel for a month to get to their destination on camelback and walking, and you had to deal with the elements that you were exposed to. However, what was the cause for him to take him on the trip with him? Emotional attachment. Emotions will make you do things that sometimes don't make much sense. Sometimes you love your child and you decide to take him to a place that would actually be dangerous for him. And some people may consider that recklessness. But for you, you're like, I can't get my eyes off of my child. You're just obsessed. Or a friend. They're like, you're taking him to work with you. You're like, yeah, I love him. Or I love her. And I want to keep him close by at all times. That's an emotional attachment. Sometimes, again, emotions don't have to make much sense. So, it was a two-way relationship. And that's what's important to consider here. It wasn't just Abu Talib liking his adopted child. Rather, Muhammad as well loved his uncle, Abu Talib, his adoptive father. Throughout Muhammad's blessed age, Abu Talib was the closest person to him. You know for how long? For 40 years. Abu Talib was the closest person to Muhammad. 40 years. He picks him up at the age of 8 and he remains with him until 48. The Prophet now at 40, as we covered in the last couple of weeks, he becomes a prophet. His ministry begins. He has a mission. And he has to deal with the consequences of what it means to relay the message. Because now it's easy for me to work for the post office and all I have to do is deliver packages and deliver envelopes and deliver your bills, give you your coupons, send you your checks. That's it. My job is a delivery man. Is that the job of the messengers? Well, they had to talk to people. They never gave people letters, except the few occasions where the Prophet in the end of his life wrote letters to different kings all around. But you had to deal with people that you knew. And you had to tell them that you're not doing things right in life. And you had to ask them to change their direction because you see them going astray. Abu Talib saw the consequences of the mission of the Prophet. And what he did is very famous. And whoever knows the story of the Prophet realizes how much Abu Talib supported, helped, and defended Muhammad. He did not let go of him when he was in need of help. Now, that's one thing. Like, I can defend you when you're in trouble, but then now I'm getting attacked. My integrity is being questioned. My loyalty to my tribe and my religion is being doubted. That's now a different story. Because a lot of times people will help you, but once problems come to their home, they let go and they stop being your supporter. But Abu Talib remained steadfast throughout the enmity of Quraysh, the siege that they put on, all the types of difficulties and the persecution that they showcased against Muhammad and the early followers of Islam. And he never weakened a bit. Again, a lot of times people get bored, you know, but he had to deal with this for 8 years. And part of those 8 years, the last 3 of his life, there was a complete embargo, a siege, where the people of Banu Hashim, Muslim and non-Muslim, Muslims and their non-Muslim allies, were put in a big prison in land that belonged to Abu Talib, Shi'abu Abi Talib. And they were just let out there to dry in the desert. No food, no financial transactions, no social interactions. Just be on their own. That was some of the most difficult years for the early community. They said we could not find food. Then they started eating the shrubs of the desert.
And they described what would be coming out of their bodies after they digest that. They said it looked like what sheep and goats produce. It wasn't human food. So basically they were in complete misery. What he would say is basically they have collected a lot of poetry of Abu Talib. It's called Diwanu Abi Talib. And it's some of the most powerful poetry in praise of the Messenger Muhammad. I have a few lines here. He says, كذبتم وبيت الله نبزى محمدا ولما نقاتل دونه ونناضل ونسلمه حتى نصرع حوله ونذهل عن أبنائنا والحلائل. He says, you have spoken lies against Muhammad, because they started attacking the integrity of Muhammad. You've spoken lies, and I don't mind losing the house of God as long as I have Muhammad. And I will fight to defend him, and I will continue to struggle, and I will never let go of him until I die and whoever is with me dies, and we would lose our families and our children. So this is talking about the ultimate sacrifice. He did not mind sacrificing everything that he had. 10 years passed of the ministry of the Prophet. So it's actually more than my calculations earlier. I said to 48, this is to 50 now. Prophet is 50 years of age. 10 years of the ministry. And 85 years of Abu Talib's life. The story now is Abu Talib is an 85-year-old man. And he is meeting his end. He's dying. So then the Messenger ﷺ comes to him, and he notices that Abu Talib had visitors around him. Who were they? They were his mom's family. People from Bani Makhzum, one of the famous families of Quraysh. Some of the famous names, Abu Jahl, whose name was not Abu Jahl. We know him as Abu Jahl. Do you guys know what his real name is? Amr. Amr, good. So Umar is one name, and Amr has a waw in the end. His name was Amr ibn Hisham. And Abdullah ibn Abi Umayyah, and Al-Musayyab ibn Hazn. And then the Prophet sees these three people, and he sees the situation, and he rushes because he's noticing this is the end of time. So this is kind of like, you know, hospice care? People who are dying, end of life care. The Prophet ﷺ teaches us what we should do in these situations. He comes to his uncle Abu Talib in his last moments, and he basically begs him. Now most people who've heard the story, they realize this portion, but they don't realize that for 10 years he was already begging him. This wasn't a new thing where at the moment of death you just come up to somebody and you tell them, hey, I got news for you. I think you should say this word. And that's what some people say, you know. They'll go to somebody who's completely not familiar with the message, and then right at the moment of death, they say, we want you to say this word. And the person's like, okay, sure, whatever, just get out of my face. I'll say whatever you want me to say. A sad but ironic story that I heard from one of the scholars. He says, a group of people were in Egypt, a couple of guys, religious people, and they were in the hospital, in a famous hospital. I'm quoting the Shaykh, so you don't ask me about the details of the story. I'm quoting one of the scholars. Two guys see a woman in a wheelchair and a guy with her. And the woman seemed like she was struggling. All of a sudden the guy goes and leaves. He's probably talking to the administration. And they notice that this woman is really struggling, like she's gasping for air, right? So these two Muslim guys, they walk up to the lady and they're like, say la ilaha illallah. They want to encourage her to say the testimony of faith as she's dying. And sure enough, she says it, la ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, and she checks out and she dies. Story hasn't ended. The guy comes now. It was her son. And they're like, your mom died. He's like, yeah, I can tell. They're like, but we have good news. She said the shahada before she died. She said this testimony of faith before she died. And the guy started cursing them out. They were Christians. They were Coptic Christians. People in Egypt are not all Muslim, right? So he's like, you made her a disbeliever at the moment of her death. Because according to them, if you say the Shahada, what do you become? A disbeliever, right? So, because you're disbelieving in the false religion that they have. Anyway, so I'm mentioning this because a lot of times people don't actually have the training. They hear a hadith and it says it's good or it's great for somebody as they're dying. The last words that they should say is La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. But they don't know how to help someone do that. They don't know how to coach someone through the process. I highly encourage that we learn that. I'm not going to mention that right here because that's for a different conversation. The key thing here is don't think that you're going to learn a text or study a text and take its meaning that appears to you and just run with it. Yes, it's great to have La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah as the last words that you say. But you're not going to go on somebody as they're dying and you're going to bother them. And you're going to abuse them. And you're going to push them without realizing the proper etiquette of how to actually do that. So this thing is called Talqeen al-Shahada. Basically to help people to pronounce it in that last moment. So now, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Prophet now, he had presented this concept to his uncle before. And he comes to him just like a compassionate, empathetic son does to his father. And he says, Ya Am. Ya Am, by the way, is the title of today's lecture. My dear uncle. إِنَّكَ أَعْظَمُ النَّاسِ عَلَيَّ حَقًّا. You, of all people, have the most rights over me. There is no one else that supported Muhammad more than Abu Talib. It says, أَعْظَمُ النَّاسِ عَلَيَّ حَقًّا. That's a huge statement. وَأَحْسَنُهُمْ عِنْدِي يَدًا. You've been the most generous in my life. In your financial help, in you helping me out through with your status, with your name, with whatever you had. فَقُلْ كَلِمَةً تَحِلُّ لِي بِهَا الشَّفَاعَةُ فِيكَ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Please say a statement. Now, kalima, of course, is one word, but also in Arabic it means a full statement. That's why the whole testimony of faith is called what? Kalimatu shahada. It's not just one word. It's ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. 12, 13 words. But it's called kalimatu shahada. Right? So it's a statement. He says, say the statement, and this will allow me and make it lawful for me to intercede on your behalf on the day of judgment. I want an excuse to ask Allah to pardon you on the day of judgment. قُلْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. He said, say there is nothing worthy of worship except the one true God. كَلِمَةً أُحَاجُّ لَكَ بِهَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. A statement that I will use as an excuse to argue your case. Again, look at the Prophet. He's looking at himself as people's advocate. He's like, I will advocate on your behalf with God, in the court of God, in the day of judgment. But give me something to help me out. It's like you're somebody's lawyer and you're like, can you please give me some evidence that says that you're innocent? Like something? You got everything against you. Give me one thing and I will fight for you. I will fight this case. Now Abu Jahl, his real name was Abu, you know what his real name was? Abu Jahl? Abu al-Hakam. His kunya was Abu al-Hakam. His real name was Amr. But what do we know him as? No one knows this real name. They know him as Abu Jahl. Abu Jahl means what? The ignorant one. Abu al-Hakam means what? The wise one. Right? So because wisdom, if it's not channeled properly, it becomes ignorance. You know Abu Lahab's name? We have another personality named Abu Lahab. What was his kunya? His real kunya? Abu Jamil, the father of beautiful. Now what's his name? The father of the flame. You know that he did not look ugly? He looked just like the Prophet ﷺ. He looked good. And he had proper lineage. And he was famous. And he was rich. And he was well off. And what does Allah say in the Quran? Tabbat yada abi lahabi wa tab. The only individual in the life of the Prophet that's mentioned by name as a disbeliever with a guaranteed state or guaranteed sentence in the hellfire is Abu Lahab, the biological uncle of the Prophet. So basically his lineage did not help him much. Something about lineage, something very important for all of us to consider. especially with the talk of racism around and people thinking that they're better than others because of where they come from or the type of blood that runs in their veins. Some of them are pure bred, while others are contaminated. An event that happened after the Prophet's life was that the Muslim community spread out. And there was two of the disciples of the Prophet. One is named Salman. People know Salman as the Farisi, the Persian one. Allah be pleased with him. He had many different stories. And his story of searching for the truth was beautiful. He was paired up with a man named Abu Darda from the Ansar, from the people of Medina. Remember, the Prophet paired people up. Al-Mu'akha, the Islamic brotherhood. Real brotherhood, partnership. We say that the best thing we can do today for our brothers and sisters who embrace Islam, the converts, or for brothers and sisters who are new in the community, or for those who don't have family support, is the prophetic system of brotherhood, sisterhood. It's your real brother. You basically spend a lot of time with them, checking on them. So Abu Darda and Salman were brethren in the time of the Prophet. Now, after the Prophet passes away, they are split up, and Salman gets stationed somewhere in the Iraq, Persia region as a governor for Al-Madain, the city where he's from originally. And Abu Darda is stationed in the Holy Land, Jerusalem and its surrounding areas, Damascus. So those are the two most holy cities in the Levant, Jerusalem and then Damascus. We spoke about the Levant earlier. We ask Allah to make it easy on the people of that land and to protect them and to shield them from all harm. Abu Darda writes a letter to his brother Salman, and he says, "Oh Salman, I wish good for you, and I am inviting you to come to the Holy Land." Why is it called holy, by the way? Do you guys know why it's the Holy Land? Why is that land holy? You come from there, that's where your family's from. Why is it holy? What makes it sacred? Is it like the geography? Is it the produce that it has? In the Bible it says the land of milk and honey. It makes it sound like it's something material. If it's something material, look at Mecca. Why is Mecca holy? There is no material things there. Even the oil that they discovered, it doesn't exist in Mecca. It's all in the east and in the south and north, not in Mecca. What makes something holy? Yeah, why did Allah put the Kaaba there? Yes. Yeah, well, he came after. It was holy before he was around. Okay, the prayer of Ibrahim. But there is something beyond that, before Ibrahim. Why did Allah guide Ibrahim to make that dua? Remember we said in the first session, Allah chooses places, people, times, and He makes them special. He makes them holy. Why is Friday the holiest day of the week? Why? Easy answer. Allah chose it to be. Why did Muhammad become the final messenger? Allah chose him to be. Why is this land holy? Allah chose it to be holy. But didn't Allah just choose it to be holy? He gave us other signs. Many prophets were sent there. So it's called the land of the prophets. All the prophets of Bani Israel came in the Holy Land. So that made it sacred ground because of the revelation that was coming and the righteous deeds that were practiced there. So Abu Darda says, "Oh Salman, come to the Holy Land. Now this is under Muslim control. What you doing over there in Persia, man? Come over here. Ilhaq bina fil ardi al-muqaddasa. Come to us in the Holy Land." He's his brother, like he loves him and he's missing him and he wants the best thing for him. Salman writes back and he says, "My dear and beloved brother, Inna al-arda la tuqaddisu ahadan." Land does not make anyone holy. It does not sanctify anyone. Innama yuqaddisu al-insana amaluhu. A person will become sanctified and special due to their actions. So it's not where you live. Because again, let's think about who's been in charge of the Holy Land for the last 70 years. Anything holy about an illegal occupation? Killing people, genocide, millions of refugees, destruction of the fabric of societies. We're talking about refugees now. How long have the Palestinians been refugees? 1948. They still want to go back. They're still waiting to go back to their homes. right? So al-ardu la tuqaddisu ahadan. You being in a location does not make you holy, even if the land is holy. What will make you holy? Your righteous deeds, right? Why did this come about? How is that connected to what we're talking about here? The lineage of Abu Lahab, right? Prophet's uncle, very close proximity. Lineage, the land where you're at, being from Kaaba, the Mecca, doesn't make you special if your actions are not special. That's what really matters. So Abu Jahl, this guy, Abu al-Hakam, but we know him as Abu Jahl, he also has another name. He's called the Pharaoh of this community. Fir'aunu hadhihi al-ummah. So the Prophet actually gave us a sunnah here that we can call people Fir'aun, even after the original Fir'aun passes away. So there's a lot of Fir'auns. Some are Fir'auns in their families, some Fir'aun in their communities, and we got a lot Fir'auns in countries, right? So Fir'auns are all around. Allah protect us from Fir'auns. Abu Jahl goes to Abu Talib and he blackmails him emotionally. Emotional blackmail. And he reminds him of something, like at the moment of death, he just goes and hits a very, very sensitive point. And he says, you're going to leave your father's religion? Now this is a grown man, 85 years old, right? He's being called on one side by his beloved adopted son, Muhammad. Say this statement and I can advocate on your behalf. I will fight your case in front of Allah. But then he's got people his own age, peer pressure. And they're telling him, oh, so you're going to forsake your father's religion. You're going to dishonor the family. You're going to go against our traditions. How powerful is that? Some of us know about family traditions, right? It's so tough to break. And he brings that up right there. He's like, you're going to... Now, for young people, they're like, yeah, I want to rebel against my family's tradition. When you're 85 years old, try rebelling. You're like, I don't want to die with a bad name. I've been holding my integrity for 85 years. Now, at the very end, I don't want anyone to talk trash about me. Young people will usually do that. That's why the Prophet's followers were mostly young. Because they said what? Forget your customs. You got customs? Forget them. Right? You got status quo? Destroy it. Older people, it's very tough for them to do that. And so when we deal with older people, we have to be wise. Not to expect them to do things that are not in their capacity. The Prophet ﷺ, again, he repeats his petition. He repeats the same request. But he doesn't get preoccupied with responding to Abu Jahl. Many of us, that's what ends up happening. If you have a mission and some devil comes in the middle of the way and tries to distract you, what usually happens? I'm having a conversation with you, and some guy comes in and starts cursing you out, or cursing me. What do we typically do? We stop our business, like we're doing something real here. We'll stop it and we'll get focused there, and then our business transaction is gone. Our plan is destroyed. Somebody put a wrench in it, and that's it. We go off track. Prophet teaches us, don't get off track on your mission. What is he trying to do there? What is his mission in this particular event? I want the salvation of Abu Talib. I'm not going to get distracted by this foolishness. Because Abu Jahl has dealt with him before. Abu Jahl came and cursed him and talked trash about him and did a lot of things. Right? It's interesting that Abu Jahl is one of the people who put the Banu Hashim, including Abu Talib, in the economic embargo. But now he's visiting him at his death. Does he really care about him and his well-being? No, he doesn't. So then he says, oh my uncle, again, Ya Am, which is the title of today's lecture, my beloved uncle, say La ilaha illallah. Say there is nothing worthy of worship except for the one true God. Kalimatan ashhadu laka biha indallah. One statement. And I will testify on your behalf in front of God through it. There's competition now. This is when you have competing things. Sometimes you're competing over the heart of your children. Sometimes you're competing over the heart of your partner. And you're talking to them, but somebody else is also talking to them. You say, look, you got to study, and if you study, you're going to be successful. Somebody else is telling them, you got to party, and if you party, you have fun. Right? You repeat it, they repeat it. You repeat it, they repeat it. Abu Jahl is doing the same thing. He got the same record. He's stuck on it. You're going to leave your religion? You're going to disgrace your father? You're going to break your integrity? You're 85 years old? He repeats it. The same thing. Sensitive points. And the Prophet ﷺ continues. begging his uncle, asking him. And then Abu Talib realizes this. He notices that my son, my nephew, is very truthful. But especially at this point, like we known him to be truthful all his life, all 50 years. But right now, I notice that there is a sense of urgency. You know, when it's a moment of death, there is urgency. A lot of us don't realize this, but I know a lot of people who embrace Islam. When their loved ones are about to die, the sense of urgency is crazy. They want to know what they can do to make sure that at that moment at least, or before that moment, they have given the shahada. And they're trying to think about all the creative ways to do that. Some of them are blessed to have their parents convert right there. But now it's not like a one-time thing where they've never heard this message. They've heard it, and this person has a track record. We're going to continue. This story will repeat itself again with the Prophet ﷺ. You must have a track record with people that they know you care for them, and you only desire good for them. You're not trying to add another number in your organization's conversion list. You actually want their salvation, right? So when you go for people's statement of faith, you go into it with a sense of urgency, right? So Abu Talib realizes that. He notices the emotion in his nephew's words. And then he looks at him and he says, my nephew, my son, if Quraysh would not verbally abuse me, tu'ayyiruni. Ta'yir is when you find fault with someone and you attack them because of it. He says, if Quraysh would not verbally abuse me, and they would say, he was afraid of death at the moment of death, I would have given you what you wish. I would have completely satisfied you. The word he says here, I'm going to read it in Arabic and I'm going to translate because it's important. He says, يَا ابْنَ أَخِي لَوْلَا أَن تُعَيِّرَنِي قُرَيْشٍ يقولون ما حمله على ذلك إلا جزع الموت لأقررت بها عينك. أقررت بها عينك. Now typically this would be translated as, I would have made your eyes cool with it. Made your eyes cool with it. The dua that many people know is, رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ. Our Lord, make from our spouses and our children coolness of the eye. What does that mean? Like you want to put a cold AC on your eye? Did anyone ever think about that? What does coolness of the eye mean in Arabic? Do you know? What is that? Cold tears, okay? What do cold tears signify? Sufyan? Happiness, good. So they say that when you're happy and you cry, they call them what? Tears of what? Tears of joy. They say tears of joy are cool tears. But when you're sad and you cry, what kind of tears come down? Hot tears. Check it out for yourself. So one is actually a joyful experience. But that's not the only meaning. In the desert, when the wind blows, not right now we got the Santa Ana winds. You guys get them up here or it's only in Fontana? Right? The Santa Ana winds with 100+ degree weather. How cool is these winds? How cool is the wind? The gusty winds that you have all day long. They're not very cool. In the desert now it's got dust with it too, and that goes into your eye. What's the most satisfaction that you can get? When your eyes are protected from that and you got coolness in your eyes instead of this hot breeze. But then the most comprehensive meaning, they say, is that you have complete satisfaction where you don't desire anything beyond that. Which means, you know, when you have complete satisfaction, you say, I'm satisfied with my child, you're never going to compare them to anyone else. Because you're like, I got what I need in my child. So qurrat ayn means complete satisfaction. So when you wish that to someone, that's what you're telling them. I want you to be completely satisfied with what Allah gave you. Meaning, I want them to achieve all the goals that you have in your mind, and they have given you complete satisfaction. So he's telling Muhammad, I will satisfy you if it wasn't that these people are going to say he's a scaredy cat, he's afraid of death, and that's why he's flipping right now in the moment of death. And then the last things that he said. So this is the problem now. You got to know what to say in your end. And that's why the scholars tell us that if you do dhikr while you're alive, Allah will make it easy for you to say dhikr at the moment of death. But if you were singing and rapping and gossiping and slandering and typing and posting and tweeting throughout your life, what do you think you'll be made to do at the moment of death? Say, المرء يموت على ما حي عليه على ما عاش عليه. A human will die according to how they lived, right? So then Abu Talib says, أنا على ملة الأشياخ. I'm on the religion, I'm on the faith of the old timers. He wants to stick with the old timers. على ملة الأشياخ, the old men. أنا على ملة عبد المطلب. I'm on the religion of Abd al-Muttalib, the chief of Quraysh. And he refused to say La ilaha illallah. Abu Talib dies. And the Prophet ﷺ is completely devastated, very sad, and grieving. Again, that's a human emotion. And we're not prohibited from having these emotions when we lose loved ones. But he's very sad that his uncle that was so beloved to him and who loved him. Again, sometimes a relationship is one-sided. This is a two-way relationship. The uncle that loved him and that he loved, the uncle that supported him, was not blessed with guidance, with hidayah. Guidance that he himself had brought forth. Guidance that he himself invited people to. And then it's as if he continues to speak to him after his death as he walks out, and he says, as if his uncle's hearing him, لَأَسْتَغْفِرَنَّ لَكَ مَا لَمْ أُنْهَ عَنْكَ. I will continue seeking forgiveness for you as long as I am not prohibited from doing so. Why? Because he felt that he's indebted to his uncle. So I want to do as much as I can possibly do to pay back your debt. Right? That's why we can never pay back the debts of our parents, for example. Throughout our lives, we're supposed to say, رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. My Lord, have mercy on them like they raised me up when I was young. The Prophet says, whoever does something good to you, make sure that you compensate them. And if you're not able to do so, make sure that you pray for them, so much so until you feel you've compensated them. And that's why the prayer that we give in Islam is Jazakallahu khayran, and we leave it open-ended. May Allah give you khayran, a lot of good. We don't say like a little good. Khayran, open-ended. Because if Allah gives you good, He gives you all types of good. Right after this moment. So again, this is important because you realize how the Quran gets revealed due to specific causes. There is cause and effect in a lot of the revelation. This is what's called Asbabun Nuzul in the study of the Quran. Allah reveals the following verse. ما كان للنبي والذين آمنوا أن يستغفروا للمشركين ولو كانوا أولي قربى من بعد ما تبين لهم أنهم أصحاب الجحيم. It is not appropriate and not allowed for the Prophet and those who believe to seek forgiveness for those who associate partners with God in worship, even if they were the closest of relatives, after they have known that they are people who deserve to be of the hellfire. Meaning their actions, and they die on a different faith. And then, because the Prophet is still feeling guilty. It's like, how can I fail in this? You know, a lot of times people don't realize this, but the story of Nuh is there for a reason. Nuh was a prophet of God. He wasn't a failure as a parent, but his son refused to believe. The Prophet Muhammad was not a failure as a nephew or as a son in this situation, but he was not able to convince his uncle. This is teaching us something, and then Allah consoles the Prophet and should give us consolation. He sends him, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَهُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِالْمُهْتَدِينَ. You do not guide those that you love, but God guides whoever He desires, and He knows best who deserves to be guided. Now, how are you going to reconcile this ayah with another ayah where Allah addresses His Prophet and He says, وَإِنَّكَ لَتَهْدِي إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ صِرَاطِ اللَّهِ. You guide to the straight path, the path of God. But here He's saying you don't guide those that you love. What do? Do you say, oh, the Quran has a contradiction? This is what Islam haters do. They find things like that. They're like, oh, the Quran contradicts itself. Muhammad can't guide the people he loves, but here he's saying Muhammad can guide, or is guiding, or is a guide to the straight path. What's the solution? Guidance of what? Yeah? You can convince me with logic too, but it's close, but not completely. Good, but you're still stuck on the heart. Forget the heart for a bit. So the first one is proper. He says, Hidayatul Irshad. The Prophet's task, your task as a parent, as a husband, as a wife, as a co-worker, as a neighbor, your job is to show people the way. Irshad. You give directions. Look, son, you study, you work hard, you're going to be successful. Hidayatul Irshad. You show them the way. You'll hold them by the hand. Take them to the job interview. Right? Take them to the university. Pay for their schooling. That's all Hidayatul Irshad. But then there's another hidayah. Not necessarily qalb. You guys are stuck on the heart. I think you're into love and the hearts and the emotions. Yeah, so good, but that's not the right answer. But he's saying to be a role model. You got to be. If you're not a role model, you're a failure. So you can show people all you want, convince them, give them arguments, debate with them, buy them, bribe them, like give them gifts, and they're like, no, I ain't having that. Exactly. Results is with God. But no, results specifically with guidance is to have tawfiq. And how do you get tawfiq? That's important. Because here he says, وَهُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِالْمُهْتَدِينَ. God knows who is deserving of guidance. Who is deserving of guidance? You got to have certain traits. If you don't have these traits, you will never be guided. And that's why sometimes the most unlikely people will embrace Islam. And someone in the middle of the Kaaba apostates. You're like, how does that make sense? You're in Alaska. I met brothers who converted in Alaska. You've seen Alaska? How do you convert in Alaska? Right? And then I've seen people in Mecca apostate and leave Islam. Next door to the Kaaba. How? It's got to be in your heart. That's where the heart plays a role. You got to be truthful and sincere. If you're sincerely asking guidance, Allah will give it to you, regardless of all the circumstances around you. And if you're not sincere, and you're a crook inside your heart, Allah will strip you from guidance, even though it's surrounding you. You can come from the Prophet's family, you can be in Mecca, you can be an Arabic speaker, you can be a scholar of Islam. But Allah takes away guidance. You're saying مقامك حيث أقامك. No, that has nothing to do with that. Exactly, yeah. وَمَن يُرِدِ اللَّهُ أَن يَهْدِيَهُ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. What does that mean? He will make him accepting to the truth. يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ doesn't mean he opens his chest like that, but he makes him open to accepting the truth. But the person got to do what? They have to seek it. You have to ask for guidance. That's why we're told to do what? Yeah, but Allah is not simply guiding you just for no reason. And وَمَن يُضْلِلْ فَلَن تَجِدَ لَهُم مِّن دُونِهِ أَوْلِيَاءَ. Is Allah misguiding anyone? That's what people see. People have a problem with that. It's like, well, so God is the one who guides and He misguides. So I have nothing to do with this. I'm just floating. And if God doesn't guide me, that means, He decided I shouldn't be guided. That's what people say. They're trying to blame God for their own actions. What does Allah guide you based on? On your own choices. You are choosing guidance and you're asking for guidance. You sincerely want it, Allah will give it to you. If you're lying and you don't want guidance, it doesn't matter how much you hear it, you're never going to accept it. Not because Allah is preventing you from it, your own is preventing you from it. But when Allah sees you turning away, He lets you go. That's why if you notice me, when I translate, وَمَن يُضْلِلْ فَلَا هَادِيَ لَهُ, I say, and whoever Allah allows to stray, no one can guide. Allah doesn't force anyone to be misguided. So how do we get this? You incorporate all the ayat that talk about hidayah and idlal together. Don't just take one and run with it. You got to incorporate the whole corpus of the text. Anyway, the Prophet ﷺ still felt bad and he had a sense of regret and remorse, and his companions would see it in his face. Again, people knew him. He was always around them. So after 10 years of this event, so after this what happens is the Prophet eventually leaves the next year to Medina. 10 years later he comes back to Mecca, conquering Mecca, winning Mecca over, and the people of Mecca come to him telling him, we want to pledge allegiance to you, we want to accept your message. And Abu Bakr brings his father. Abu Bakr was an old man, his father was even older, Ibn Abi Quhafa. And he brings them to shake hands with the messenger and to agree to accept the message. And then this old man extends his hand out, and it's a weak hand. And then Abu Bakr starts crying when he sees this. And he sees his father's hand in the messenger's hand. And the messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is surprised, and he says, Abu Bakr, what's going on? Why are you crying? So he says, O Messenger of Allah, I wish that was your uncle's hand instead of my father's hand. And that your uncle would convert, and then Allah would give you satisfaction. That is more beloved to me that my own father is guided. And then he tells them, وَالَّذِي بَعَثَكَ بِالْحَقِّ لَأَنَا كُنْتُ أَشَدُّ فَرَحًا بِإِسْلَامِ أَبِي طَالِبٍ مِنِّي بِإِسْلَامِ أَبِي أَلْتَمِسُ بِذَلِكَ قُرَّةَ عَيْنِكَ. Now this is the other story, which is the love of Abu Bakr for Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. He says, I swear to you by the one that sent you with the truth, I would have been more happy if Abu Talib converted to Islam than when my father converts and embraces Islam, because all I wanted was your complete satisfaction. So he still knew that 10 years down the line, the Prophet still has this vacuum in his heart for his uncle. So now the author says, and today as we read this story, we also have this remorse and this empathy for the Prophet, and we wish that Abu Talib had testified to the truth on that day, and that he was able to witness his nephew conquering Mecca, and that he noticed everybody converting and embracing this faith in huge numbers, and that the Prophet ﷺ himself was completely satisfied. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَن يَشَاءُ. However, God guides whoever He wishes, right? Whoever He selects, because guidance is divine selection, right? Abu Talib, as we're going to read. So now we're going to read the lessons very quickly. I hope I can cover them because I got a bunch and we just went off track. And this is what happens when I go off script. So we got to have somebody here that's going to be the script person. You got to tell me, go back to the book. The first thing the author says, I've asked myself many times, if we're going to think about this logically, who is the most deserving of all people to convert and embrace Islam? All of humanity. If you were to ask, like the ideal person to embrace Islam, right? Like right now, a lot of people think here when we're in America, we're like, you know, you've heard this conversations. I wish X, Y, or Z embraces Islam because their conversion is going to be so influential and other people will be influenced by that, right? It's like that is the ideal personality to come into the community, right? Everybody has their own person depending on how they roll. Who is the most deserving to bear testimony to the Prophet's truthfulness? Of course, the logical answer is Abu Talib. He knew the Prophet more than anyone else knew him. No one knew him as intimately. Remember last time we said how Khadija knew the Prophet? She only knew him for 25 years. How long did Abu Talib know him for? Nearly 60 years. Nearly 60 years he was with him, non-stop. Right? He knew him as a child. He knew him as a young man. He knew him as a youth. He knew him as an adult. He knew him as a man, and he knew him as an adult man, a mature adult man. And throughout these phases of his life, he knew how truthful Muhammad was, how trustworthy he was, how pure he was, how transparent he was. He recognized every single one of his conditions of life. He knew how he left and he knew how he came back. He knew everywhere that he went. And that's why he says about him. He's so proud of him. He's got this line, this poetry. It's called Diwanu Abi Talib. لَقَدْ عَلِمُوا أَنَّ ابْنَنَا لَا مُكَذَّبُ لَدَيْنَ وَلَا يُعْنَى بِقَوْلِ الْبَوَاطِلِ. He says, he's testifying to all of humanity, the community that he had. He's like, they know for sure that our son is not a liar, and we will never deny or doubt what he says. لَيْسَ مُكَذَّبًا لَدَيْنَا. We don't doubt what he says. And I don't care what anyone says. So in his lines of poetry, he says, there's other lines, I don't think we have it here, but he says that I have no doubt that the religion of Muhammad is the best religion in all of humanity. And if it wasn't for people talking bad about me, then I would have said that out in the open. So that's something to consider. Logically, he completely understood. He believed in the truth of Muhammad, had no doubt about it, not even a slight doubt. What's the problem? This is what many people don't realize. They're like, well, that person is actually good. Is there anybody better than Abu Talib? Like, do you know any non-Muslim who's better than Abu Talib? There is no non-Muslim better than Abu Talib. Anyone closer to the Prophet than Abu Talib? No one's closer to the Prophet than the Prophet, right? Anyone that knew how truthful he was, but there was an issue. The issue is you got to testify and you got to submit. And he wasn't ready for that. He says, with all of that, and he saw 10 years of the ministry of the Prophet, day and night, him preaching and teaching and calling people. He dies, and the messenger was right next to his head, begging him to say one statement. And if he would have said it, the Prophet would have been completely satisfied. Not just the Prophet, but all of us as well by extension. So he says, this is a great sign that teaches us that guidance is a grant and a gift from the divine. Al-hidayatu minhatun ilahiyya. You can't buy it. You can't bribe it. You can't force it on anyone. Hidayah is from Allah. Completely. He gives it to those that He chooses to give it to. And Allah knows best who deserves it. Just like He knows best where His mission goes. Allahu a'lamu haythu yaj'alu risalata. Allahu a'lamu haythu yaj'alu hidayata. God knows best where the mission is, where the messenger is, and God knows best where guidance is as well. And he says that's why there were so many people that embraced the faith at the hands of the Prophet, although they only knew him one time. They would see him and they're like, this guy is not a liar. Okay, I accept whatever you got to say. And they would leave. He wouldn't see them again. And his uncle, for all these years, nearly how long? How long did we say? 50 years. Sorry, 50 years. I'm off with the numbers today, I'm sorry. Right? He knew him for 50 years. What did I say earlier, 58? I said 60? Okay, sorry about that. He knew him for 50 years. So he's saying next, if we consider this concept, then we realize how much Allah has blessed us by guiding us, because so many other people have been misguided. And then this should help us make meaning of the words that we say in salah. Because every single rak'ah we say, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Guide us to the straight path. Right? Maybe I'll speak about that some other time, about all the different meanings that are extracted from this. Maybe when you guys invite me for a khutbah or something. Next khutbah here, inshallah, I'll talk about this. Remind me, you say, talk about this concept. Problem is, I don't have any more openings. So I don't know what you're going to do. You're going to have to fight with other masajid. Tell them we want this guy because we need to find out the meaning of what we say. Right? So he says, if knowledge was simply knowledge, guidance was simply knowledge, intellectual, then Abu Talib would have been the most deserving of it, because he had more knowledge about the Messenger of God than anyone else. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَن يَشَاءُ وَهُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِالْمُهْتَدِينَ. However, God guides whoever He wishes, and He knows best who is deserving of guidance. Okay, I think we'll pause here because Salah is almost, it's time for Salah, right? Although I still have a few more, but what we'll do is delay it till next time. Is there? Sorry. Okay. It's up to you guys. Anyone needs to get ready for Salah? Okay. Actually, since we're at this, I'll talk about the meanings of guidance. That's very important, okay? So I'm going to share with you 7 meanings of guidance. When we say Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Now, I don't have my notes, so I'm going to go off script, but hopefully I'll remember all of them. The first meaning of guidance, although this should be like a 30-minute minimum lecture. The first meaning of guidance when we're saying Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. We're saying, oh Allah, guide us. So it's only translated as guide us, which is very, very shallow. The first meaning is we're telling Allah, show us. Show us the way. Right? If you are going somewhere, you need to be shown the way. So the first thing we need is identify the path to us. It's like I tell you, go to the 210, and you're like, show me where it is. Right? If I show you, you're identifying it. That's the first thing. You need to be shown. Everything else is going to come after you seeing it. Now, after you see it, that's called what? Hidayatul Irshad. That's what we can show people. I'll put you all the way at the freeway entrance. I've showed you. Hidayatul Irshad. So Allah gives us that through different mechanisms. Through signs in the creation, signs in revelation, people all around us, that's Irshad. So Allah shows us the way. Then you have, we just spoke about Hidayatul Tawfiq, which is Allah actually doing what? Giving us the success to actually jump on the path. So we're saying guide us to the straight path. We also have to spend some time covering what the straight path means. So the scholars have said many things. The first meaning of straight path is Islam. You're asking Allah to guide you, show you Islam. You're like, but I'm already Muslim. Right? That's the common thing. It's like, I'm already guided. Why should I ask for more? That's the meanings of Hidayah. So Islam, Quran, all of these are mentioned in the Quran, by the way. Islam is called As-Sirat al-Mustaqim. The Quran is called As-Sirat al-Mustaqim. As-Sunnah is called As-Sirat al-Mustaqim. وَإِنَّكَ تَهْدِي إِلَى صِرَاطٍ الْمُسْتَقِيمٍ. The Prophet's path. The way of the Sahaba is called As-Sirat al-Mustaqim. The understanding of that early community. وَمَن يُشَاقِقِ الرَّسُولَ مِن بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُ الْهُدَى وَيَتَّبِعْ غَيْرَ سَبِيلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Sabil al-Mu'mineen is As-Sirat al-Mustaqim. The path of the believers. Who were the believers in the time of the Prophet? The Sahaba, the disciples of the Prophet. Next. Who are these people? Again, the explanation is Sirat al-Ladina an'amta alayhim. Who are they? Allah tells us elsewhere in the Quran. An-Nabiyyin, the prophets. You got to be on the way of the prophets. Was-Siddiqeen, the righteous. Was-Shuhada, the martyrs. Was-Salihin, the pious. وَحَسُنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. So that's the second meaning is show us, then now we've seen it, allow us to get on it. All right, now we're on it. We've had irshad and we've had tawfiq. Next, we're still saying it 17 times at a minimum as Muslims. If you're doing salah, every rak'ah you recite Fatiha. And Fatiha's name is ad-du'a. You're actually making a request. That's the part of salah called prayer. Everything else is not prayer. Everything else is ritual, devotion, right? So the first meaning is keep us steadfast. How many times have you seen people go on a path? So we spoke about university. People start university and then drop out, right? Start med school, drop out. That's a path. I'm not saying that's the path, but we see people do that all the time in life. You get on the freeway, you get a detour, right? So the first thing you need is consistency and firmness. How do you get that? The Prophet taught us a dua. Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. O you who alters the hearts, make sure, allow me to be firm on your religion. First meaning. Second meaning, increase me in guidance. You're like, what do you mean? Guidance is the only thing we need an increase of. We don't need an increase of money or anything else. If you have increase of guidance, all your life will be fixed. وَالَّذِينَ اهْتَدَوْا زَادَهُمْ هُدًى وَآتَاهُمْ تَقْوَاهُمْ. Those who are guided, meaning they desire guidance, Allah increases them in guidance. So we need more. So constantly ask for more guidance. So after you've been shown the way, you've been guided to get on the path, you're asking to be firm on the path, and this firmness is not just in this life, because there's another sirat al-mustaqim. When? In the next life. In between heaven and hell. If you weren't on the path here, you're not jumping on that path there, right? So you need to go straight, a straight line. Okay, next, we said increase in guidance. Third meaning, things that people differ upon. Prophet teaches us a dua. Allahumma rabba Jibra'il wa Mika'il wa Israfil, fatir as-samawati wal-ard, عالم الغيب والشهادة أنت تحكم بين عبادك فيما كانوا فيه يختلفون اهدني لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك. Key point here is guide me to the truth that people have differed upon. Many people claim the truth, right? But you need specific guidance to be guided to the truth according to Allah, not according to you. Everybody thinks they're on the truth, by the way. They're like, I'm guided, yeah, for sure. I have no doubt that I'm on the right path. How about begging Allah and asking Him, oh Allah, you're the Lord of Gabriel, Michael, and Raphael. Those are angels. In English, those are the English names. The knower of the seen and the unseen, the creator of the heavens and the earth. You judge between your servants and things they differ upon. Guide me to the truth that people have differed upon. Surely you guide. إِنَّكَ تَهْدِي مَن تَشَاءُ إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. You guide whoever you wish to the straight path. Next meaning is to guide us from things that are good already to things that are better. Right? الذين يتبعون القول فيتبعون أحسن الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. You hear a lecture, you hear part of the Quran, but you want Allah to guide you to something better than what you already have. For example, we're already coming to the masjid, right? We should not be satisfied with that. Now we should be doing extra. I come to the masjid once, I want to increase that. So hidayah for increase. In what? From good, I'm already doing good. I'm not doing bad now. I'm already doing good. I want to do better. Always room for improvement. That's different than an increase in guidance. This is a different station, a growth in spiritual station. Then there is another meaning, which is to be guided to things that people don't see clearly. And this comes with iman. This is something called basira. Basira is insight, again, in the heart. Some people, they can't see with their eyes, but their heart see very clearly. And other people, their eyes are 20/20, but they're blind. The truth is in front of them and they cannot see it. Right? What are they lacking? Nurul basira. They're lacking insight. Insight comes through hidayah. So when you're saying, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, give me insight. Things may be confusing to people. It's like everybody's going one way. Hey, hello, should I go there? Well, today I heard something. He says there's a communist country. And he says, you go to that country and whenever there is a line, people just stand in line. They don't even know why they're standing in line. He's like, there must be something that they're passing out. So like they just go and stand in line. You don't even know what the line is for. Right now in traffic, what happens? Everybody's, what do they call it? Rubbernecking, right? And then we got a traffic jam. Somebody has an accident. Why are you looking at it, right? So you want Allah to guide you where you don't care about the distractions and you're still going straight. And then the final meaning has to do with life experience. Has to do with life experience. Just like the Prophet gained guidance gradually, right? It took 23 years for the Quran to be revealed. He wasn't in the same state from day one to the last day. There is a gradual process. Guidance is going to be a gradual process. And there is nothing wrong with that, with you realizing, you know what? I'm more understanding than I was before. I see things better. That's part of life. If you've been seeing the same things your whole life, something is wrong with you. There's no growth, right? So you want growth in guidance. So those are some of the meanings of guidance. So now, when we say Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, hopefully it should have more meaning. Show us the way, get us on that way, give us the success to remain on it, firm and steadfast, increase us in guidance, show us things that people differ upon in truth, because sometimes the Muslims are differing on truth, right? But nobody knows where the truth is. Well, you need Allah's guidance. And then guide us from things that are already good, we're already doing something positive, to things that are better yet. And then show us things that are ambiguous to others, give us insight, give us vision in our hearts, not just in our eyes. And then finally, allow us to live a life of guidance, where we're able to actually see things that other people may not see. And this is called firasa, and that's a gift that the believers are given. So with that, I'll conclude. It's time for Isha. So Allahumma ihdina, we ask you, Allah, to guide us. Allahumma arshidna, show us the way. وثبتنا على الهدى, keep us firm on guidance. واهدنا لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك, guide us to the truth that people have differed on. وزدنا هدى, increase us in guidance. واجعلنا من الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه, make us from those people who hear speech and follow the best of it. وارزقنا البصيرة يا ذا الجلال والإكرام, guide us to have insight and vision of our hearts, not just vision with our eyes. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله وسلم. We ask you to bless the Messenger Muhammad, to bless his family and his righteous followers. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Allah is far above any imperfection. We testify that nothing is worthy of worship besides him. We seek his forgiveness, we repent to him, and we praise him as we started by praising him. Alhamdulillahi awwalan wa akhira. All praises due to Allah in the beginning and in the end. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So straighten the line, fill in the gaps. Heels on the line, please. Come up. Heels on the line. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم